Sorry about that little hiccup there. We had to stop and come back because my lights flickered off. We're in the middle of a bad storm here, so I will continue as much as I can. So here we go with part two, and really nothing was missed because it cut off right at the same time that I was where I stopped. So you guys have gotten all of this so far, right? Give me a wave, a shout, or something if you're missing anything, and I'll try and review. So I'm coming back over to this is my orange and my white mixture, and I'm just going to add a couple of these buds from this peachy color as well. So I'm just going to put a couple of little bumps, and all it is just tap the brush down. Now, I am not, like I said when I started this, I am not a fine artist. I am just a crafter who has figured this out, and you know what? I enjoy doing it. I think it's fun, and I thought this was a great way for all of you people out there who agree with me that maybe you just want to experiment with something and have a little bit of fun. So anyway, you can still create fabulous backgrounds that are unique, with just a few simple strokes of the paintbrush. So now I have some peach flowers, I have some pink flowers, and this is layer one. Now it's time to come back with layer two. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my pink, and I'm going to load my brush up, and I'm going to grab a little bit of this white on the same brush, okay? So I have both colors loaded up on my paintbrush here, okay? It's hard to see on camera, I'm sure. But this time I am going to sweep across the center, and I'm going to sweep across these little ridges right around my petals. And I'm going to continue to load up my brush and just sweep. It's just a sweeping motion. And what you're doing is by picking up both colors on the brush at the same time, as you sweep, you're going to see that variation in color, which is what's going to give us some shadows and some highlights all at one time. We're just going to keep this simple. So I'm going to come back with the pink and the white and do it again on all of these. And all I'm doing is sweeping into where the petal shape would be. If you have a little bit of orange on your brush, no big deal. By the time we're done, all of these colors are going to be represented on these flowers. And it's going to look like a giant mess. There is no way around it. It's just going to look like a giant mess. Let me see if I can get my camera to zoom in for you guys so you can really see what I'm doing here. Really fast. Let me see. You guys tell me if I zoom in a little bit, if you can see what I'm doing a little better. Okay. Okay, is this good? Can you guys see real good? Alright, so all I'm doing is loading that brush up with both colors, the white and the pink. I want both colors on my brush, and I'm just going to sweep in and sweep in. And like I said, I'm probably not using, like somebody who's a fine artist will probably come in and just cringe when they see what I'm doing. But you know what? This works for me, and everybody seemed to like my technique or like my results. So, it is what it is. So I'm just going to bounce this color right in, and I'm keeping it kind of thick, okay, because that's going to give my flower a little bit of texture, and I'm just pouncing that in, and it's just adding another layer of color right around these areas. And all of these different colors on my paintbrush are really adding texture to my flower petals. And also keep in mind that as this paint dries, it's going to take on a completely different look. And don't forget to swipe across the center of your flower, because that's where your little bud sits. Okay, so now let's come in and add some to this orange area as well. So you guys see what I'm doing? Can you really see all of that goodness in there? See it? Hi, Laura. Okay, so let's come back and let's do the same thing with the orange. So I'm picking up the orange and the white, and I'm just going to sweep it in there. And like I said, it's just technique. It's just practicing. And if I were you, I would practice first on a piece of just your index cards, your art journal. Tags are a great way to start out. Card panels, if it happens to look good, then it just came a card. Got some kind of goopiness there. So I'm just picking up a little bit of orange, a little bit of white, and swooping it in. And see how they're already starting to take shape? It's so fun. Okay, so I'm going to come back with the orange there on my little bud. And okay, so I have a lot of color going on here. Now I think I want to take some of this orange and mix it in with some of this pink to give myself a really nice warm coral. Maybe pick up another little bit of this pink and see how it's making it all corally goodness. Okay, and then this time I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to add another layer right over the top of all of that stuff, and it's going to mix with that thick layer. And I don't have to worry about this creating mud because honestly, one, it's acrylic paint, and two, I'm using two warm colors that are in the same color family pretty much. You'll in these values I would have a red and a yellow value that would make the orange, so this pink would be found in this orange. So I'm not worrying about the mud even though I'm using two different color tones here. And if you've ever looked at some roses, they're really cool because you can really look at a rose, and see a lot of different colors in it. So don't be afraid to mix your paints and come up with some interesting looking colors. This is really so easy to do. So you guys got the gist of how this is going to go down. That we're just going to keep adding these layers until we get what we're after. And like I said, it just starts to look like a muddy mess. That's okay. As soon as these dry, you're going to start seeing all of this nice, luscious texture. So I'm going to add a little bit of pink to this one. And don't forget your little swoosh there in the center. And if it looks like it's getting too dark, come back in with some white. And just keep adding layer after layer. And like I said, a fine artist might cringe at my technique, but it works for me. And I think sometimes that's why we feel like we can't do something, is we just overthink it. We just put a little too much into it. And we're just overthinking it. Okay. Do you like? Look at how, especially this one, you can really see a lot of color coming in. And again, you're going to see even more color when we do the final step. That's really when they all kind of come to life. You guys liking it? Anybody have any questions? Don't forget your semicircle there in the center of your bud. Like down here, this guy's getting a little bit muddy, so I'm just going to come back with a little bit of white. And I'm just going to continue to build these layers one right after another until I get the look that I'm after. And then once I have that look, I'm going to clean off my paintbrush over here to the side. I'm going to pull out a little bit of yellow. And like I said, if you were using a heavy body paint, like a golden paint, or even maybe the student grade acrylics from Liquitex, you would get so much depth and texture from all of this extra paint. I mean, this is just craft paint because we're just doing a craft project. So use the appropriate mediums for what you're doing. But look at all of that. Isn't that fun? And this one really looks like a rose. Okay, so right here in the center, I'm going to pick up some of this yellow, and I'm just going to kind of dot it in. Right there, maybe a little right there. Keep in mind perspective. Not everything has to be a complete circle. So I'm just dabbing that, and I'm being pretty generous with the amount that I'm adding because I really want, like I said, I want these peaks. I want a lot of thickness, and again, if I was using the student grade paints or the full body paints, I would get a lot more texture than what I'm getting here, but for this it's fine. Now for these hearts, I'm just putting a small dot right in the center where the center of the heart is. Now, resist the temptation. Walk away from this and let it be. Let it dry, let it do its thing. You can always add more paint later if you feel that it needs a little more of something. But at this point, we are going to take this and we are going to put it to the side and we're going to allow it to dry. Do you guys like? Do you see how simple that was? I mean, it's starting to look like a Panama Jack print, right? So I'm going to put that to the side. And from the magical world of art, I have one that's completely dry here. So what I want to do is, as you can see, these are a muddy mess. I mean, they're not fantastic. They're just a bunch of paint strokes. But when you zoom out, they kind of take on the feeling of a rose because your eye is going to take a look at that shape and it's going to automatically assume this is a rose. Now, we are done with this. I'm going to put it to the side because tonight after I leave you, I may sit here and paint some more of those luscious goodness. So I'm just going to leave that off to the side to dry, or to, you know, until later because I don't really need it right now. And now we're going to talk about shading. And I'm going to pull out some of my Faber-Castell Design Memory Craft pens. I have the May Green. This is the 170. I have the Caput Mortem number 169, and I've probably totally butchered that name. You can use any brown you have in your stash, any color you have in your stash. It does not matter. I'm using scarlet red because it happens to be the color I want to pull out in these flowers. You could use pink. You could use any pink you want, Mad Hatter or Madder Lake or whatever it is. But I love these Pitt pens. So for you guys who are unfamiliar with these are markers that are made with India ink, and they have this really awesome brush tip on the edge. I've been using these for years and they have never dried out. I think I've only had to replace one of them, and that was because I didn't put the cap on all the way. So they're awesome, awesome, awesome pens. They go on and when they're wet and they're on a prep surface, and when I say prep, I mean non-porous surface. So like this acrylic paint is a prep surface. When they go on, we can totally blend with them. But when they go onto straight paper, like this, they're a marker. So this is like a marker, but it's permanent. Once it's dry, it's totally permanent, okay? So this is what we're going to do. You ready? This is so fun. We're going to take this orange and we're going to go around where the bulb would be, right here. And we're going to just kind of go back and forth, just like this, and look at that start to take shape. And then down here, think about a rose. The lightest part of a rose is going to be the top of the petal. So I'm going to come around the edge right here, and I'm going to put just a little bit of color. Now, do you see where I overlapped right there and it got a little dark? Don't worry about it. That's a shadow. Okay, now to give the illusion that the petals are overlapping, I'm going to come back in this way and do the same thing, but this time push the ink this way. So I'm going to do this on all of my petals and just add some shadows and highlights here and there. My petals are going to be the darkest towards the back and around the bottom of the base of the bulb. Okay? And again, just push out some color. I'm not coloring the entire thing. I'm only pushing color into the shadowed areas. If you color the entire thing, then the whole thing, you might as well not use different colored paints. But see how that's starting to look? Now we're going to come back on this one since we're already done. And I'm going to take a semi-dry brush, grab some of that white paint out. I'm going to dab it off to the side here, and I'm going to come back and add just a few more highlights, and again with my finger just kind of push those around. And this gives the illusion of the rose. So right here at the top, maybe coming down off the sides. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Seriously, I think that we sometimes just overthink things. Okay? Then to finish this off, let's go ahead and do, I like to do all of them while I have my fingers all muddied up. What do you guys think? Such a fun background, and to be honest, every time I do this it looks different, so very unique. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, I love my Pitt pens. I can't even create without them. But see how each one of these layers, it starts to look like a layer with each layer of paint. Do some semicircles that are smaller, and don't forget to leave some of those white areas back there. Maybe right around here is going to be really dark. And then right in here. And I'm going to continue to do this for all of these flowers. How are we doing on time? And you don't, like I said, don't cover up every spot. Some of these areas need to be left white. Does anybody have any questions? Could you do this with gelatos? Absolutely. I've done roses with gelatos many a times. Could you do it with watercolors? Absolutely. The techniques are going to be different with watercolor than they're going to be with this because we're using acrylics, and acrylics don't get muddy. So on my buds, I'm just going to kind of come down one side of the bud. Just kind of stay towards that center area and maybe right here at the very base and smooth it out. And then maybe towards the back a little bit. Just kind of brush it in. Remember, India ink's going to dry permanent just like the paint is. So if I don't like it, I can always come back with my paint and just kind of push some more color back up in there. And you just literally just keep playing with it until you get it right. Treating each petal as its own unique thing. Remember to keep your shadows and your highlights separate, because if you don't, then that's where you start losing that shape of the flower. You really need to make sure you're keeping some highlights in there. See how cool that is already? See how it just kind of came to life? Now wait, there's more. Let's put all the white back in there. Let's grab out a chunk of this white and put it right here. And I really want this to be kind of somewhat dry. So I'm just going to kind of touch in some areas. Just be strategic about it. And it's still going to pick up some of that India ink. But it's going to help to define these petals just a little better. Give them a little bit of shape. And trust me, you're going to be sitting here looking at this going, oh, this looks like a giant mess. And maybe it does. But you know what? When we're done, you'll never know. And you have to be patient and let these mediums work with each other and let them dry and do their thing. And all you've lost is a little bit of paint, right? So if you don't like it, just start over. and practice until you get it. I mean, it's seriously so simple. I think sometimes we just try to make things too hard. Okay. See the difference between this one and this one? See how just those little bit of highlight and shadows? Anybody have any questions? I need to look at the chat. And you know what? They're so simple. I mean, seriously, so simple. If you get a little bit too much paint on there, just kind of brush it off. Like that brush is just too heavy with paint. Just take your fingers. See how I'm just taking my fingers and picking it up? And if you need a reference, pull up a picture of a rose up on the internet. Take a look at where the shadows are. Take a look at where the highlights are. And again, remember, these are not real drawn roses. These are doodled roses. So anything goes. Anything goes. Right? One more little bit right here. Just a little. And I want to kind of really enforce another petal like right through there. And see how I got that a little too muddy? Just come back with my Pitt pen and add that. Now this is where they really start to come to life. You take your brown and just in that yellow area, you still want to see some yellow, but just kind of put a few little spots. Oh, I forgot to do this on here. So in this area, I'm just going to add a few little tiny spots. And that's going to be like the little stamens sticking up out of your roses. And that's kind of what really gives them their shape and makes you think they look like roses. Look at that. Just a few little spots. It's so relaxing. Now to give it a little depth, let's come back in with the green and let's add a few flower petals. Okay. We're going to come into the base of our buds and connect them. Just a little bit. Same thing here. Maybe put a petal coming out this way over our little hole here. Put a little. See, I'm being super technical here, right? I'm really spending a lot of time making these look perfect. Remember, some of these leaves can come off the edge. Just make sure all of your flowers have some sort of connector to them. Okay, then this is where it comes to life again. You're going to pull out this brown, and on one side of the leaf, and in this case maybe just the base, I'm going to just take and drag my finger up into the leaf. And the brown, I don't know if you can even see it, but right here, watch what happens. When I take this brown and only come up side of this leaf and pull it in, it really starts to give some life to the leaf. Don't overdo it. You don't want them to be brown leaves. You just want to give a little bit of texture and some shadowing. And if you think you overdid it, just come back with the green. Cover it in. And you're seriously just going to continue to build these out just like this. You could even come back if you didn't want to use brown. You could use like a darker green. and then allow it to really dry, because that's when you start really seeing, because right now they're still kind of wet, so you're not really going to see a whole lot of what you're doing, because it still has a lot of a wet, glossy kind of look to it. Pull those in just like that. Look at how cool this is. It's just really popping and coming to life. Do you like? Let me pull it up. Hold on. Okay, so right here we have another one that might need a little bit of life. Just like that. Now this is when the magic happens. I think I need to put a little bit more white in there. Let's take this guy. This one is just bugging me for some reason. I don't know. I don't know why I'm worrying about it, because I'm going to cover it up anyway. There we go. There we go. Look at that. Look at how pretty. Looks like a Panama Jack painting, don't it? They're acrylic, and then I also use pit pens. You can use acrylic too to finish it off if you wanted to do the leaves and all. I just like the look of the ink and the now I'm going to take, this is some Lindy Stamp Gang. This is the Glitz Blazing Sun. Any gold you have would be fine. And I'm going to just very lightly mist it. And then see how when I mist it, how the colors just start to pop and mesh together. So love it. Okay, so let's add a little bit of heat to that. Just let it sit. Like I said, those pit pens are not permanent until they're dry. So let's get them dry. Get them good and dry. And now look at all this sparkle in there. So fun. I don't even know if you guys can see it, but this is where it's going to really kind of pop and come to life. So I have this Liquitex gold paint. I'm going to mix it up really well. Bring my little palette back out. I'm going to put some of this gold right here. Make it kind of thick. I really want it kind of thick. Okay. Then I'm going to take some water and just spritz a little bit of water in there just to get it good and soppy. And then I'm going to take the base of this and I'm going to just kind of pounce it in some spots. Whoops, that's pouncing too much. Hold on. Okay. Let's try, this one's just not going to work right. Let's try something else. Let's see. Old Faithful here. See how it's given those little circles? And they're going to offer a little bit of distraction over these roses. So it's going to kind of hide a little bit of your imperfectness. As you call it. Look at that. So fun. Now let's add some with some splatters. Let's get this bigger paintbrush and just pick up some of this. And let's just splatter some on there. You don't want a lot. Just enough to kind of get some glitz on it. Now let's hit it with the heat gun. Now look at it. Wait, let me see if I can get it to shimmer. How fun is this? I love to see. Hashtag following Tonya Gibbs. That's what it is. Hashtag following Tonya Gibbs. There wasn't any imperfectness. Julie, I think you're my biggest fan. Look at how luscious this is, though. Look. It just kind of gives it another little bit of depth. I mean, I don't know. I just think it's awesome. Okay, so do we have time to decorate this tag up, or do you guys, is it time to go? Oh, we got plenty of time. It's only 9:30. You guys want to see me decorate it really fast? It's recorded. If you missed the first half, it is recorded. Well, I say it's recorded. I got booted halfway through. If it doesn't record, then I will go back and do it again in a YouTube video. Okay, so I'm going to put this aside. I don't want to waste all this paint, so I'm probably going to do a couple more of these anyway. So let's decorate up this tag. What you guys think? Let me see if it's all dry. Kinda. I think we can work with it. Okay, so I had this idea for decorating it. Let's pull out these. These are some Prima. I've had these forever. This is called Parlor. And I think I want this window shape here. Somebody's going to win this tag tonight. Peggy has to pick us a winner. I think Anne-Marie had to go. She sent me a text and said she had to go. It's late here on the East Coast for show. For show. So my son is leaving me next week to go to college. He's my baby. And I'm kind of sad. So you guys, these things are so old, they're kind of sticking to each other here. I'm not going to use this door, so you know where he's going? Right into the one-hit wonder stack. But before I do, I have this little piece of paper. You see that sticky stuff? I'm just going to stick it right to it, and that's going to keep it from getting all stuck up on everything in my stash. And actually, to be honest with you, you know how these resin pieces don't stick to hot glue? Watch this. If you take a little piece of this paper and you stick it there, guess what's going to stick to hot glue now? Although I don't want to do this right now because I don't want this to stick through. But yeah. Okay, wait. I don't want to get off on a tangent. Let's do this. Okay, so I have this, and I have also pulled out, in anticipation of being able to do this, I've pulled out some things from my one-hit wonder pile, which is forever growing. So let's go ahead and put this guy in first. These are the large We Are Memory Keeper dew hoppers. Let's see. Alright, so on the crocodile, I have people ask me this all the time. On the crocodile, you see this piece that's sticking out right here? It's got a spring on it. That's the one you want in the front. And on the large eyelets, that's on the B setting, and this one's on the 4 setting. And you want that one in the front, the little springy thing in the front. And then that way, this piece right here clamps down and makes the perfect eyelet every time. Okay, and I only use these size eyelets, so I never change the setting, so I don't ever have to worry about what it is. I'd probably have to buy another crocodile if I decided I wanted to get a smaller one or a larger one. Do you guys feel that way sometimes? Alright, let's pull this gel medium back out. Now, before I do this, I do want to take some of this white paint that I have off to the side over here, and I'm going to give a pretty generous coating of that white paint on this girl, because I do want to sprinkle some stuff on her, and this paint gesso just kind of helps to give her a nice coating. I think these are pre-gessoed, these little resin pieces, but I've got paint sitting over here that's going to go bad if I don't use it, so let's use it. So I'm just going to kind of roughly paint this over these pieces. Okay. Also, in my little stash of goodness, I keep little pieces like this. This is just a little piece of lace. So I'm going to use that as a screen in the back. And it's got that little bit of a hole, and that is okay because that gives it texture. And all of the stuff sticking out at the top, that's okay. It gives it texture. So what I'm going to do, my trick for this, is that I'm going to take some gel medium, and I am going to very liberally apply gel medium to this little guy. And that's going to hold him in place eventually. But for now, until he decides to stick for life, I'm going to apply a little bit of hot glue. So that's my little trick. You can do both. And then that way, when the hot glue decides it doesn't want to stick anymore, the gel medium will stick in place, but the hot glue will hold it temporarily until we have a chance for the gel medium to bond. Okay? And then I think I want to take her and put her right on top right there. So here's my trick for her. You see how she's going to kind of overlap, and right in there I'm going to put a very liberal amount of hot glue in that hole. So I'm adding my gel medium, which is really going to be what makes her stick. But I'm going to add a very large amount of hot glue right here, which is going to help her stick until the gel medium sticks. Okay. And she's right there on top. Isn't that cool? Okay, next we're going to add some flowers, and we're going to keep this really simple. These I found, these are lace appliques, and I was a big old yard of them, and I cut them apart, and I ended up with about 20 of these when I bought the lace. So for this one, I'm going to cut it in half. And this one, I think I want to stick like right up here, like this. So I'm going to add a very liberal amount of that right there. And then on this one, I want to pull it down way down here, like that. And she's going to look like she just stepped out right out of a flower garden. And it's okay if that overlaps a little bit. I actually think I prefer that. It gives it a little depth. And then I have this guy, and he was cut in half. So let's kind of curve off those edges a little bit so it's not so harsh. And I really don't want to see him. This is kind of dark up against all of this, so we're going to go back to this little sponge that we have and just add a little bit of this gesso to it, and this will also help the mediums to stick to it when I spray them on. And I'm going to add a very liberal amount of this gel medium, which is not going to hold it in place for right now, so I'm going to also add a little bit of hot glue. Yikes, this is hot! Metal and hot glue. Okay, maybe put that one right there. Okay, loving it so far. Now I have this flower and I like it, but I really think the center of this flower right here is just a little too much. So I'm going to pull that off, and we're going to go ahead and add that guy right there. And he's just going to kind of bridge the gap between this applique piece and this metal piece right here. Now before I get carried away, I also found these guys in my stash, and they came from this. These, you guys have seen these in the dollar bins, right? Use it. Use it, use it, use it, use it, use it. Use the D-stash. If I create something, I have to use something from my D-stash. I have to. That's part of my personal thing. That's a personal thing for me. So I'm going to just have this. I'm going to just kind of give it a little bit of shape. This little vine. And I think I'm just going to apply this down with the hot glue because it's just really not going to go anywhere after I get through adding all this other stuff on it. I'm just going to tuck it in. I use everything. You guys, I am the queen of the scraps. And then you see this piece right here? Let's just continue that vine on down into this region. But before I do, I don't like the way that is, so I'm just going to cut it kind of a little closer to those. And it's going to get tucked right under there, just like that. So it looks like one big vine, like it's on a trellis. This is my favorite part of a project. It really is. Now, this guy, you see him? He's wood veneer. But what he is I bought some of these wood sheets from, I used them a couple of Ustreams ago. These are Wood FX, and you see this right here. This is from the branding strip that's also wood veneer, and why would you waste that, right? So I punched out a little butterfly from that. This is a Martha Stewart punch. Is he not like the most darling thing on the planet? Let's add him right here. He's going to just kind of nestle in right there. Oops. Okay, and then we have, what else do we have in here? Let's see, we have one of these. And we can take, where did you go, little guy? Wrap this little stem right around this, something thin. It could be a pencil, crochet hooks, or what I usually use. This is a paper piercer, just to give it a little spiral. And then I like to pull it too. And I'm going to add that right in here, maybe right here. Again, a very liberal amount of this gel medium. And a little spot of hot glue. And that baby's not going anywhere. Look at how fun this is. Okay, so I have a button I think I'm going to put here in the center. And is this metal? I may have to go for a different button because this one's metal. I don't know. Alright, let's just wing it. We're going to put that right there in the center. Very liberal amount of hot glue because this is metal. And the hot glue is just going to hold it in place until that gel medium has a chance to do its thing. Okay, so we've got that. Now let's take some of these. And I don't know that I necessarily need the stems on these. I think they're just going to get in the way, but I need enough to tuck. So I'm going to open these up just a little bit. Put some more of this on there. Lift this guy up just a little bit. And put this right here. It's so pretty. Alright, I'm not liking how this is turning out up here. And I may need to go into the stash and find something else to... If I put this guy there. No. I may have to find something. I think I got him just a little too far up. Let's see if I can tuck him back in. Oh, I can. What if I put another rose right there on top? We have some more of these little small ones. I'm just going to take it and hot glue it right there because there's gel medium under that applique. And then just maybe pop that right there. I love it. Loving this. What do you guys think? How do I want to do this? Kind of open that up a little bit. Slap some gel medium on there. Slap a little bit of hot glue in there. And stick this baby up in here. Just like that. Whoops. Okay. Glue. Glue. Okay. Love it. Look at how pretty that is. Already. We haven't really even done anything fun to it yet. Okay, so now let's spray it with some mediums. I also have some of this Cockabell's Coral. Before I do that, let's just hit some of these pieces with some of this gesso. That's just going to help them to take these mediums a little better. And notice I'm not using a lot. I'm just adding enough to where it will help to seal and kind of help it take some of this color. Okay. Then I'm just going to hit it right here in the center. And this is going to help my flowers to sort of match what's going on. in the background. Look at that. Isn't that fun? Anybody have any questions? We are nowhere near done. Competition is challenging. It is, it can be, but you know what? I like balance. I find that whenever I get overwhelmed with a little bit of composition, I try to balance things out. And you notice that when I was putting things down, I worked down here, I worked up here. I put the same element down here that I put up here. Um, you know, so it does help. Now this is nowhere near what I would call this is nowhere near where I would call dry. So as it dries, it's going to have a different look because my roses are going to be a little more bright, if that makes sense. And then right here, I don't like, after looking at this, I don't really like how that piece is just kind of out there. I'm going to see if I can't make it like a curly Q. I just didn't like it sticking out. Well, I like that. And I love how that little rose is. I do have, from my little stash of goodness here, I do have another rose, but I've already spritzed everything, so I'm not going to bother with it. So now here's the final touch. Here's the very final thing that makes everything amazing. I have this little cup here, and I have some green glass glitter. I'm just going to put some in that jar. This is my new favorite thing to do. I mean, like, seriously. I have this Glossy Accents, and I always get aggravated because the tops get all gommed up where you can't squeeze it through anymore. So this is what I do. I'm going to pour this down in here. And you do want to use a glossy medium for this, because if not, it's going to take the shine away from your glitter. Okay, you don't need a lot of this, but see how it is in the cup? I'm going to stir this up really good. And I'm using green because this is a garden, and I think green glitter would add a really nice look to this. But this glitter is going to help to add a little bit of depth to those regions. Deep crevices there. Let me see. So you don't want this to drip out everywhere for sure. So don't get too much on your little popsicle stick. But I'm going to take some of this, and I'm going to start working around my flower arrangement and all of these negative places right here where things kind of have an awkward transition. I'm going to just poke some of this glass glitter right down inside those crevices. A really great place to show you is right here. Like right between where that rose is. Try not to make a huge giant mess out of it. But what this is also going to do is, this is Glossy Accents, which you guys know will stick for life. So it's almost like I'm adding glue also at the same time. And see how it's just going to add that little bit of sparkle in those negative spots. Oops, it's kind of hard to do. Sometimes you just got to use your fingers. But I'm using a popsicle stick, and I'm also using a little toothpick to kind of tuck some of that in. And I also want some of it to kind of come down the vine a little bit. Don't overdo it. I mean, sometimes a little bit goes a long way, you know? And right here, like right here where it's just kind of floating there, just pick it off before it has a chance to dry. And then right maybe behind here, this would be a fun thing to kind of hide some of that hot glue goodness you got going on back there. You can mix all kinds of stuff with this Glossy Accents, not just glass glitter. You could use micro beads. You could use glass glitter. You could use sugar glitter. And it's a fantastic way because you guess what? Once it's on there, it ain't coming off once it's dry. You don't have to worry about getting glitter all over everything because it's going to dry pretty permanent. The trick is, because it's so thick, is getting it back down in those crevices. Just take your time and play with it. Put some below some of these pieces so that you get a little bit of sparkle back here. But this is really going to fill in your shadows, and it's going to help some of these holes. You know, like right in here where, you know, things just don't kind of come together really easily. Now you can't save this, so don't over mix it because it does dry out pretty fast. It is Glossy Accents after all. So don't overdo it. Just do a little bit at a time. You can always mix up more, but once it's dry, you know it's going to be just a big hard blob of goo. Don't y'all like the words I just make up and just say? But see how it just kind of adds that little bit of sparkle. And when it's dry, it's going to look even better. Tomorrow when I take pictures of this, you're going to be like, oh, that's so pretty. I really think when you pay attention to the details, that's when things really just kind of come to life. And I could seriously sit here and piddle with this for hours. But I think this is going to be our last little final touch that we add to this. I really think I want more goodness here. Maybe a little on my butterfly. And let's hit this with a little bit of heat. So that's it. Let's tie it off at the top once we get this good and dry. Look at that. Do you guys like it? Oh, thank you, Laura. Laura said, I share so many techniques. Leave no white space. No, I don't like white space. I'm a cluttered up queen, honey. I can clutter it all up. But I love how our little cluster of flowers really does help for our, it kind of enhances the look that we went through here. You know, like you can still see this flower that we hand drew, and this just kind of helps to bring everything into a dimensional. And hashtag following Tonya Gibbs if you try any of these techniques, because I would love to see what you create. And my glass glitter looks like topiaries in the back. Look at the goo. This is my monster glue. All right, let's clean up a little bit. So now that that's a little dry, let's go ahead and add our finishing touch, which is going to be this. And I have another, you like those techniques, let me show you this one. Okay, it's a challenge to poke this lace through this hole right here. Okay, because it's tiny little hole, got this big old lace. So I take the stem that I cut off of my flower and I wrap it around, and then I use this like a needle, poke it through the hole. Now, it's going to be a tight fit because that lace is super thick and that hole is not very big. Okay, but once I get it started through there, I can just pull one in and out. Take this off. Whichever end decides it wants to come out. I hear my husband getting ready for bed. He's going to come in here in a minute and go, let's go, round it up. You going to stay in here all night? Oh, wait. I'm trying to pull too much at one time here. Hang on. There we go. But see how that helped me to get that fed through that hole? And then I'm just going to take, now this was a piece of scrap this lace. Keep the smallest of pieces of lace that you never know. And I'm just going to tie a little knot there, but before I close it down, I'm going to just put a spot of hot glue right there. And that's going to keep my knot closed. And look at that. Now I have one of these right here. This says Inspire. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that paint on it. It's just going to help it stand out a little bit. Rub it in. I don't want it too painted. I just want it to kind of really get some paint down in them holes that say Inspire. Kind of help it come to life a little bit. Kind of tone it down a bit. And then here's one of those little garment hooks. I think these are from Tim Holtz as well. And I'm just going to hook that through there. And then hook it. Put the hooker through there. And there you go. So Miss Peggy, who's our winner tonight? Who's going to be winning this tag? And then just to keep this from bouncing around too much, we're going to put a little spot of hot glue right there. And look at that. There we go. You're taking notes? It's recorded, honey. You can watch this over and over and over again if you want to. Okay, who's my winner? Who's getting the tag? We need a drum roll. Laura's like my biggest fan. Laura, Julie, Pam. Emily picked from a bowl. Hi, Vicky, you made it. And the winner is... Who is the winner? Who is the winner? Who is the winner? Sharon, you're the winner. Oh, I love you too, Laura. Yay, Sharon! And Sharon, your name looks like it's a new name for my channel. So have you tuned in before? Now, I get asked this all the time. The backs, they're so messy. What do you do with them? Well, I'll tell you what I do with them. You see this leftover good paint right here? I'm going to take this. Where is that? Let me clean off my paintbrush really fast. I'm going to take this white paint that's right here, and I'm just going to paint it up. And that's going to keep it kind of neat. And it's not going to waste my paint. And I may need to add a couple more coats, but the black gesso is the best for doing this technique. But see how it gets the back all neat and clean? I need to refill my bottle here. Couple little coats, and that's it. And if this tag curls up on you, It's just because the mediums are wet. When they dry out, you can pounce it back out again. It'll flatten back out. But now look at how neat the back is. Just like new. And then before I flip it over, add a little bit of Do I have a favorite brand of mediums? Gessos, matte mediums, etc. I use a lot of the Faber-Castell mediums. Gesso, I've bounced around between Liquitex and Faber-Castell. I use a lot of Faber-Castell gesso. I like it because it's fluid. And you know what? This is how I started out the show. It's one of those things. If I'm crafting, I'm not being super particular. If I'm doing a fine art piece, I might be a little more particular and go with a higher grade. But to be honest with you, most of the mediums that I use are, you could use the Prima ones. They're a really nice brand. They're really nice quality. I use the Faber-Castell. That's the ones I tend to reach for. Faber-Castell just makes some really nice mediums, but I use their gel medium for some things, and some things I use Liquitexes, and some things I use Goldens. It just depends on what it is I'm trying to do. But for stuff like this, every time I use a brand in one of my videos or one of my shows, I always show you the brand that I'm using. So, you can see. I think it's one of those things too where there are different types of gel mediums. There's matte gel medium, there's matte medium, there's surface prep, there's what do you call it? Fluid medium. Here's the differences. Usually when it says gel medium, it's a little thicker. Matte medium is usually really thin. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. If you need a really loose glue, then go with the matte medium. If you need something that's a little thicker, you can go with gel medium. This actually is kind of what I would call a medium weight gel medium. It's not super thick. The one I have from Golden, let me get it really quick. That one I use a lot for canvases where I need a really thick, heavy weight. And this is actually just gel. It says, and it's from Golden. But you see how thick that is in comparison to this? See how this is, I can tilt it and it's kind of running? And this one's super thick, like a full body. This is gel. And then this says gel medium, but it's real loose. So decoupaging and that kind of thing, I usually use this. Send me your address in Facebook. You don't have to put it in here. You're in Missouri? My son is moving to Kansas City, Missouri, that area. Sharon, I will be there. I don't know how far away you are from there, but I will be there on Friday. So does that help any? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I use whatever I can get my hands on. But honestly, I would say my go-to, the ones I use the most, are going to be the Faber-Castell brand. I really like them. For what I do, I like them. But I also know that sometimes I think that this gel medium's a little too runny, so sometimes I'll reach for something that's a little thicker. Now, I will say this is really milky. It's not super translucent, in my opinion. If you put it on thin, it's translucent, but the thicker you put it on, it gets kind of milky. So be careful with that. Any other questions before I sign out? So Miss Sharon's going to get this lovely tag. I just overall I just love the mediums from Faber-Castell. I mean, I use their Pit Pens, I use their gelatos. I mean, seriously, the gelatos. Have y'all seen the new packaging for the gelatos? Oh, it's so yummy. They're so yummy. I love the glass bead glitter gel. Have y'all seen that? Oh, I have one up here, a sample. I just made these cards, and this is a background. Look at this. This is the glass bead glitter gel. Look at that. Look. Isn't that fun? And oh, oh, there's so much texture. Look at all that texture from the glass beads. You see it? You want me to ding dong ditch ya? You want me to show up at your door and just craft with you? If you guys could scrapbook, and don't just say me, but if you could sit down with any scrapbook celebrity, who would it be? Go.